It seems everybody is roughly connected. I suggest we get going. My name is Mara Roldi. I know many of you. I'm the academic director at the Government Outcome Lab, and this is our Indigo peer learning session for November. I just want to welcome you all. We have 1 hour today. The agenda is absolutely packed to keep us on our toes and have a zingy and energizing meeting. I would like to invite you to put in the chat your hello and where you're from, so that everybody can put your name on a map as well as on the face. I would invite you to keep your camera on if you can. We like to see each other and see what everybody is wearing and what is the hair situation of the day. So to get us going, we have a warm-up exercise that I will launch in a second, and which is a Slido survey to look at potential improvement in our impact bond database and dataset. We will then have a presentation on the Hack and Learn technical and learning report given by Juliano, Sri, and Ikao. 10 minutes quick fire with some Q&A at the end. And we will then come to the core of our session. And we are really lucky to have Silvana, Fumega, and Nicolás Grossman with us today from the Global Data Barometer to talk about data availability, in particular, when we look at low and middle income countries. It's across the world. They are a global data barometer, but we have a lot of curiosity about low and middle income countries. And then we will open for discussion. So I will stop here. Thank you, Juliano, for the slide. I remind you that this session is being recorded. So by attending the session and participating, you agree with your statement to be included in the posting of this session. So I'll stop here. Juliano, we are in your hand for our warm-up exercise.
Okay, thank you, Mara. Can we go to the next slide, please? Great. So we're going to start a period of summer work on our impact bond dataset, which I am sure you already know it. And if you don't know it, we are going to share the link in the chat soon. And we would like you to ask a couple of questions. So here we have a Slido survey. You have the QR code here. So if you have your cell phone here, you can just scan it. And we have 2 questions for you. Can we go to the next slide, please? The first question is about a ranking. We have been thinking about some improvements to our Indigo platform, but we know that some of you may prefer some improvements before than others. So you can rank them. Just tell us which is the improvement that you think should come first and which is improvement that you need the most. And the second question is for you to suggest new improvements that are not in the first question. So if you think there is an improvement that you really, really need, or something that would be really, really useful for you as a practitioner, for example, you can suggest it here, and then we will collate all these results and we will share the results of this survey at the end of the session. So we want to do this little exercise to understand which are the needs and which are the things that the community needs to keep using our impact bond data set. And after this data set announcement, I think it is back to Mara again.
Thank you. Do you want to take the survey now, Juliana? Shall I give 2 minutes?
Oh, we can do it now, yes. If you start completing this, let's give it like 3 or 4 minutes, because there are some improvements that you need to read and maybe think through, and then I can share the results. So this is always interesting to see on this side of the screen, because I'm going to say the truth. There are some improvements that I think are the most important ones, but when you ask to different groups of people, you always see that different groups of people can have very different ideas of what are the most urgent improvements to have. So I think we can give like 1 more minute. Okay, I will share my screen now. Okay, can you see the results? So I would say that the most urgent improvement that we need is the possibility of using 2 or more filters at one time. This is a very common improvement. Everyone wants this to happen. And then we want a new button to download the complete data set of the outcome fund data set and the assessment resources data set 2, which is our impact wayfinder. And number 3, but then it's the same as number 4, is the update of data definitions and categories, and then a map counting civic projects, because at the moment our map is counting service delivery locations, not specific civic projects. So I would say that these are the most voted categories. Thank you so much for your feedback. And we didn't have many suggestions for improvements, but this service is going to be open for the next days. So if you think of another suggestion you would like to see here, you are more than welcome to keep using the survey for this purpose. Now it is back to Mara.
Thank you, Juliana, and thank you everybody for your feedback. We are we will come back at the next peer learning group saying you asked, we did, for sure. Now we are moving on a quick fire conversation about the Hack and Learn Technical and Learning Report, which was launched today. And we have Juliana, who will give an overview of the report. And then we will have some comment and reflection from Sri and Ikao, who took part in the Hack and Learn that took place between August and September. Juliana.
Okay, thank you, Mara. So I really want to say that we are very, very excited to present our Hack and Learn Technical and Learning Report today. This report reflects on the learnings and lessons from the participants of this event. And when I say the participants, I mean participants in the broader sense. I am referring to the attendees, to the challenge leaders, to the co-host institutions, etc., etc. The main goal of this report is to collect all these experiences in one single document that would form the basis for a discussion on how to move forward with this event, how to improve our challenges, how to make the most of this experience. And I think this is what we did. We collected everything in one single document, which is here. And Mayra will put the link in the chat soon, so you can all click on it and download it. If we go to the next slide, we will see the Hack and Learn timeline. I'm just going to do a very, very quick recap for those who couldn't participate in the event. We started our event on the 23rd of August with our kickoff session, where we pitched our different challenges and we divided all our participants in different groups. These groups worked really, really hard during 2 weeks, from the 23rd of August to the 9th of September. Believe me, they worked really, really hard, and you don't know how difficult it is to coordinate with people from very, very different parts of the world. So this meant that lots of participants had to wake up at very early hours, and many other participants had to go to bed at very, very late hours, but they did it and they got very, very nice results. They showed us these results on our show and tell session, which was part of our 2021 Social Outcomes Conference. And we were impressed with the level of the outputs. They were all really, really interesting, and they all resonated with me, at least a lot. And the last part of our Hack and Learn event is this meeting today, where we present our technical and learning report, which is full of the short stories of participants telling what they did and what they learned in this event. Our report has details and descriptions of every stage of our event, I'm not going to repeat these descriptions, and I'm not going to tell a very detailed description of the challenges because I want you to read the report, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. Maybe we can go to the next slide, please. I will just say a very brief recap about the different challenges that we were working on. We had some people working on a pipeline data set or a data set about upcoming impact bond projects. We had other people working on the alignment between social outcome metrics and SDGs. Other people were working with pilot projects and trying to understand how to scale them up. The Ashoka team were great, and they were leading on two challenges, one about the impact of COVID-19 on Indian not-for-profit organizations, and the other one was doing a data synchronization exercise with some data from corporate social responsibility in India. And then we also had one last team working on OBCs, or outcome-based contracts, and the different forms that an outcome-based contract can take. And then we had one more. We had a challenge number 7, which had a particularity. It was a challenge that was suggested by one of our participants. The challenge was about using the social impact bond model to incentivize the production of more generic drugs. And this is something that you should also take into account. This is a possibility if you're interested in participating in this type of events, but you have a challenge that you are worried about or something that is really interesting for you, but you want to approach that challenge in a collective way. I think this is the place to go. And if you go to the report, you will see what are the steps that you need to follow to suggest a new challenge. And next slide, please. Having said that, I'm not going to say anything else or more details about the report because I think you should go and read it. But you should read it if you're interested in seeing a description of our challenges and output. If you're interested in this, this is the report for you. If you want to participate in next Hack and Learn events, or you participated in a previous one and you want to see how the event progressed, this is the place to go. How to suggest a new challenge, that's also there. And this is the most important part. The report is full of short stories from participants about their learnings and experiences in this event. And I think this is the most inspiring part of the report. So I really, really encourage you to go and look for those stories. And when I say our report, I really mean it, because I wrote the report, but I had so many participants collaborating and contributing with the report that I really feel is our report more than mine. So I see many Hack and Learn participants here in this call, and I invite you to feel part of the report and to share it with your wider network. And we have 2 participants from the Hack and Learn here today, Srinitya and Ikao, who wants to share their personal experience and to tell us what they did and what they learned in this event. So I think, I don't know who's going to go first. It could be Srinitya or it could be Ikao.
I think Silvana, she can go first.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Juliano, and thank you, Maro. I'm Sri, originally from Malaysia and currently studying Master of Public Policy at the school here. Having previously worked in a government agency in Malaysia, I saw the way that data was increasingly being used for decision making and for evaluating various impact. And I was just generally curious about the intersection of data and government outcomes, and having general interest in wanting to learn about outcome-based contracting that led me to participate in the Hack and Learn event. So I was part of Juliana's team, the Hack and Learn number 13, where we looked at social outcomes and sustainable development goals. As Juliana mentioned in a presentation, the team was made up of participants from all around the world. So we had some participants from India, Italy, Cameroon, and a few other countries as well. And we looked at impact bonds and projects and the outcome metrics and how that linked to sustainable development goals. So some of our learning as a group were that some of the policy sectors as very direct link to the SDG goals, and some of the projects it wasn't very straightforward. So we had to kind of compare a few things and then connect them. And some of the policy sectors that had direct link was health, and some of the things that was a bit difficult were policy sectors related to child and family welfare. Some of the things group suggested for like improvement of the Sankey diagram was to include new filter for primary and secondary goals of SDGs. So in our time at the challenge, we completed the policy sectors for employment and training, education, health, and child and family welfare. In the future Hack and Learn challenge, we can continue working on the same data set, but complete other sectors in criminal justice, agriculture, and environment. And my main learning personally was that it would be valuable to align like the outcome metrics, even while they're deciding which outcome metrics to go on the impact bonds with the SDG goals. I think after my involvement with the event, I'm a bit more interested to learn more about outcome metrics in general, and also like to see like how we saw some of the outcome metrics were linked to more than one goals, and to kind of look more into what are the nature of those outcome metrics that has more than one connections, if there are any patterns that it can be found there. Another thing I think we had a bit of discussion was to look at outcome metrics and see the keywords, and if there are like patterns in that has relationship and alignments with specific SDGs, and if there are any patterns in there as well. So for me personally, it would be interesting to continue working with the same data set, but answer different related questions. And thank you once again for the opportunity to share the experience. And I look forward to the next Hack and Learn challenge.
Thank you, Sri. This is very insightful. And I would assume that some outcomes are more difficult to measure than others. And so probably some of them lend themselves more easily to an outcome contract. Ikao, what was your experience?
So, hi everyone. As I said, I am Ikao. I'm coming to you from Brazil, and I am a master student at the Federal University of Bahia, and I'm currently studying assessing the impacts of a program that's trying to teach data science to girls and also recently boys that are in a situation of vulnerability. So my research in this field is what brought me closer to the Hack and Learn and the INDIGO community. I am quite close to the INSPIRE team. They invited me to the first Hack and Learn this year. They invited me, welcome to their team as it was part of them. And I was able to dive in this world that I never heard before I started to study this field. This field. So in this last Hack and Learn in August, I was part of two challenges: the pilots versus Kilowatts challenge, and also the OBCs challenge to typify the OBCs. So both challenges in my mind, they were about finding patterns, finding trends. And in particular, the OBCs versus Kilowatts, we were able to find that basically what differentiates pilots and Kilowatts is ironically the size. They become bigger, they become more able to accurate define which is their most interesting target population, and they also have some issues with data. We saw that some partners, they change roles and it's not clear also if the data is available or if projects, they just change stakeholders as they grow from a pilot to a scale-up version. And about the typifying OBCs, the outcome-based contracts challenge, we were able to quite make basically a financial approach to separate the different types of contracts of the SIBs, DIBs, and even as ASGs, the new trend. So basically, we saw about things about who is paying for the project. If there is another party that will be in the middle and will make the investment, and so on. So in both these challenges, I was quite able to learn a lot. But what I was able to observe, and I think it's a lesson I learned, is that engagement is key, and it's easier when we make simple tasks with clear steps, and we try to make life easier for the participants, because everyone is quite busy, so we cannot demand that much of people. It's a challenge, but it does not have to be something like it's suffocating. So I think for the next challenge, I want to continue in this pace. That's it.
Thank you, Ikao. It's really nice to see patterns emerging. And I wonder if there will be patterns emerging in our Hack and Learns when future generation will go back and see if we change topic, if some challenge remained, and what were taken up. I am mindful of time, so I would like to ask everybody to, if you have ideas of potential challenge, you have ideas, you have burning questions right now, can you please put them in the chat? Because I don't want to take away too much time from Silvana and Nicolás, who joined us from the Global Data Barometer. And as I mentioned at the beginning, that we talked to us about data availability worldwide. Silvana is the Global Data Barometer Project Director, and she's also a Research and Policy Director of ILDA. Nicolás is the Research and Data Lead on Global Data Barometer project. So lots of data experience and expertise in the room. They are very close to launch a very important report. So we are really keen to hear from your expertise. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you, Juliano, as well, and all the team for this invitation. We are gonna try to be very brief in terms of the explanation of the project. There are so many elements that we can spend like 2 hours just talking about indicators and questions. Sorry, but today we just want to give you like an overview of what we are talking about and some initial findings. I mean, we are still on the stage of reviewing the data, so it's not just something that we come across and that we can see and we can share in advance with you, because we know that you really care about data and the things that are coming out of the exercise. But the full report, the website, the visual tools and everything, we are planning to launch everything in February 22. So wait for that, and I'm sure, I mean, there's gonna be plenty of things there for you to, I don't know, explore. And also, I mean, probably many challenges could be coming from that. I mean, I was hearing the discussion and the interventions earlier. I was thinking like maybe there are many things to do together when we have all the data out. But just not to take a lot of time, I just want to start with the barometer. I mean, as Mara was mentioning, I'm the project director. I'm here with Nicolás. He's the data lead. Is also Fiona here in the audience, that she's in charge of comms. So we are like a really mixed team with people from around the world in different countries. I mean, originally in ILDA, we are a Latin American based organization, but this particular project has people from all around the world. So the first thing that I want to mention is why we are doing this. I mean, like after almost a decade since the launch of the Open Data Barometer that many of you might know, this year we are launching the GDB, the Global Data Barometer. And the main reason is because we are starting to talk about things that probably we haven't been discussing in the past decade with the first Open Data Barometer. One of the things that I want to share is that, I mean, even though public data has been more accessible in the last decade, and we know that, we really don't know how well it is deployed as a result for tackling social challenges, enabling collaboration, driving innovation, improving accountability. And that's something that all of you are talking about, I mean, with the challenges and the things that we are discussing here. So because of that, we know that we need new benchmark, because if not, we are losing track of key data agenda related issues that affect policymaking and innovation. So with that in mind, this year we started the Global Data Barometer. So, and basically, I mean, some of the questions that were coming in the conversations in the past few years and that we are trying to at least to explore or to think about. Probably there are going to be many questions that are going to be explored in future editions, but we wanted to start the conversation on some of the things that we are discussing, for example, privacy and care of data, protection of human rights in the development of technological interventions, development of techniques and tools for machine learning, digital security, inclusion in the production of data and algorithm, data governance structures. All these topics can no longer be ignored, and we need to start working on how we can measure that, but also work with that. So in this context, we have designed the GDB to respond to some of the issues, to fill critical knowledge gaps, and also to think about different sectors, different regions and countries around the world. In this sense, I mean, I want to stress this point because it's really important for us to include as many countries and regions as possible, and also, as I'm going to be mentioning later, to do that with a network of people that they know the context and the places where they're working. I mean, we can't really cover or know everything, so we need the help and the knowledge of different people around the world working in different topics also. So with the support of IDRC, in particular the Global Research Hub, and also the support of some other organizations, like for example, the United Nations Population Fund, we started to work on that around mid-2020. Initially, the project was, I mean, to go back in time, was initially designed, or the conversation started in January 2020. There was a meeting, and there, I mean, a long time ago when we could travel, I mean, without thinking about vaccines or those kind of things. We were happy and we didn't know it. So that was the kind of the last trip before everything started to close in January 2020 in Washington, DC, where many experts from around the world started to have a conversation to see what we need to include in this new benchmark, and where are the questions or the indicators that we need to explore. Basically, one of the things before giving Nicolás the space to explore a little bit more about the indicators, I mean, as I mentioned, it's built on the experience of the Open Data Barometer, but also the idea is not just to look at open data. I mean, we are talking about data, so that's a major change in terms of the agenda and how we are addressing these issues, and also a special concern about thematic lenses. I mean, we are working, and I'm going to explain later some of the organizations that are collaborating with us, but we are looking at a couple of core modules, but also putting a lot of focus on different thematic lenses. So I'm going to stop there, just not to take too much time, and I'm going to let Nicolás explain a little bit about the methodology and the things that you can explore later when we have the results.
Hello, thank you, Silvana. First of all, it's nice to meet you, all of you, and to be here in this conversation. And in the next minutes, I will explain briefly how we structured the Global Data Barometer study. So when it comes to the results stage and you can explore the data availability, you know how we build this tool. So, well, as Silvana was mentioning, the idea was to explore more than open data. So the core concept is the data for public good. And this concept was broken down into different concepts and sub-concepts. And the Global Data Barometer is composed mainly by 4 pillars when we assess data governance, data capabilities, data availability, and use and impact in each country. And there are another way of understanding the structure of the survey, that is, we have some modules that focus on the national context, and we also put these thematic lenses with exploring the thematic models and the sectoral practices. And in the next slide, I will explain how is this divided. So we have these core models where we assess data governance and capabilities in a national context. And we have the thematic models where we go deeper and analyze in different sectors, for example, land, political integrity, public contracting, etc. So this is the structure on how it's divided. So we have these two kind of models, the core and the thematics. The core models have only governance and capabilities indicators. And then we have the thematic models where with climate action, company information, health, land, political integrity, public procurement, and public finance, that are these thematic areas, we explore through the indicators on the 4 pillars that we mentioned that are the core structure of the Global Data Barometer. So it doesn't mean that each of these themes explore the 4 pillars, but they are in a combination of all of them. So each indicator belongs to a pillar and also belongs to a model. And each indicator is composed of 3 main parts that has sub-questions. We said that one part is the existence, so it's where the researchers assess if a framework or a data set or a capability exists in the country. Then in the element part, there is a checklist where they describe more in a more deep way how is this data set or how is this framework. So we can collect a lot of structured data on this data landscape. And then the extent sub-question of the indicator explain and tell us the coverage of this data set or this framework. For example, if it applies only for some region of the country, or if it's something that could be found at a national level. So overall, we have our primary indicators where the more than 100 researchers were collecting data in more than 100 countries from the GDP survey, and we combine them with secondary indicators that we get from secondary data sources to inform the global index. So we have 13 indicators related to data governance. 6 of them are core indicators. It means that they track national frameworks, and 7 of them are thematic governance indicators that they explore data governance focused on some thematic areas. We have 5 capabilities indicators, 4 in the core module and 1 thematic, 17 data availability indicators, that is the biggest part of the survey, and 4 indicators of use and impact that, as you know, is something that is challenging to be measured. So we are piloting these indicators. And to this, we add the secondary data sources to complement. For example, the capabilities indicators is more secondary data sources. So having given this very brief and fast review on how this data was composed, so you understand for when you hear something about our outputs, I will leave the floor again to Silvana to talk about the research process and the network that we have to build these data sets.
Yeah, thank you, Nicolás. I know it was really quick and probably there are many questions or doubts. We are having in the last slide a lot of resources, so you can go deeper and there see what we mean with these indicators, pillars, and so on. And basically, the last things that I want to mention is about the process, because we think it's not only important the methodology and how we approach the topics, indicators, and so on, but also how we go into the data. I'm thinking mostly about the idea of having this broad network of regional hubs covering over 100 countries. We are also, working. Okay, sorry, I was checking the chat. No, we are also having if we can move a little bit, Nico, to the other slide to show you the network. Those are the regional partners that we are working with. Each organization in different countries around the world, they are covering certain number of countries. We have some standalone countries, we have some regional organizations that are covering, for example, I don't know, LDRI is covering Africa, ILE is covering Latin America, and so on. There are different organizations in different parts of the world covering a number of countries and selecting the researchers that are completing the survey. We are also working with government survey. It's a much shorter survey that we provide to governments for them to provide us with some inputs and something of the things that they want to share, in particular about the national ones, not the thematic, but the ones that are related to the core modules. And also when we are talking about thematic partners, we are very lucky to have the partners in different areas. I mean, the expertise that they have in particular areas, and each of these thematic partners, they provide input and they help in the development of each of the modules. For example, GIFT was the one providing input for the company information, for the public finance module, Land Portal, of course, for the land module, Open Contracting for public contracting, OGP and TI, they were working on the largest module, that is the political integrity one, Open Ownership with company information. I mean, there are several organizations, international organizations, working with us in the development of each of the modules. And basically, I mean, some of the things that I want to stress, and is part of this broad network of people, is that we are really proud of the mix that we are accomplishing in terms of researchers, organizations. I mean, we are now currently a global South in a majority team. I mean, we have still people from different countries, but in the largest, we are all from the global South. So that's something that we are really happy and proud about it, because it's not usually the case. And also we are trying to think about in the future, because I was looking at some of the, I think it was Mara that put a question there about the assessment of indicators or something like that. I want to stress that this is a pilot edition. We are testing many things in terms of how to approach different topics. There's one critical that is use and impact that we know is problematic and it's really difficult to measure in this type of exercises. We are also thinking about what other topics or thematic areas we need to cover in the future and those kind of things. I mean, that's the process that is gonna be coming during 2022. Once we finish, we are gonna do an assessment of this edition. And probably, I mean, and we know now already, because looking at the data and looking at the modules, we see many things that we really want to keep, and there are things that we need to improve in future editions. So we are already taking notes of that. And also when we have all the website ready, we are gonna be asking everybody to go into the results, and if they have any question, comments, or inputs to make it better or to think about the future, please do so, because we are working in a collective way. We are approaching this as a collective learning device, not just a collection of assessments. So we want to do this all together and think about how to do it better in the future. Just one last comment, and maybe Nico has something else, is about some of the things that we are looking now with the data. I know there is some noise. There's some mic that is open. No, just to give you some idea of the initial things that we are looking at, because we were looking at middle and low income countries, and this was the topic of the main topic of this discussion of this group. And some of the things, again, we are still reviewing the data, so this is just general things, and I mean, we are expecting to have more surprises in February with the full report and the data. But for example, some of the things that we are looking at is that governance frameworks are really key to assure not only availability and quality, but there's a but, as usual. What we are seeing when looking at especially middle income countries is in many cases governance frameworks in terms of legislation, policies, or any other type of frameworks are there. They are pretty good. The problem is implementation, as you might imagine. I mean, I'm not giving you any really surprise, but we are seeing that again in the data. I mean, I don't want to go back too much, but we saw that at the beginning of the access to information movement, and there were plenty of great legislations, and then when you look into implementation, the scene is completely different. Well, something like that, of that sort, is what we are looking at right now. Then, of course, we are going to go into much detail with the report and the data, but it's just to give you an idea that that's also the case of this type of data. The other thing that we want to highlight is that availability and use, at least with the things that we are covering right now, are not necessarily correlated. We are seeing places where there's a lot of data, but the use is not as high, and the other way around as well. So talking also about what the Open Data Charter usually encourages the idea of publish with purpose. So in many cases, there are many data sets that probably not a lot of people are using, and the other way around as well. I mean, there are many NGOs that are taking the extra effort to make some data available, even when the data is not available online or in a granular way by government. So there are many things to explore there. And as I mentioned before, I mean, to keep looking and working and thinking about how to better approach the idea of use and impact of this data. Again, collective learning device, that's what we want to stress as well, is something that we want to do together. And also that the products that we are launching in February is just the beginning for everybody that wants to do something with that. I mean, we want to stress also the idea that probably is the finish of this first edition, but we want these products to be the beginning for many other organizations, researchers, and so on that want to do something with that. So we are going to try to encourage and support organizations and people working with the data that we are publishing. And the last thing, again, I'm not surprising anybody that context matters. So the idea is to provide at least some tips for different type of countries and social contexts. I mean, not only thinking about the ones that are the top of the ranking, but thinking about how to improve your situation if you are in a different context. So thinking about what are the measurements that we can provide to improve a little bit your situation wherever you are. So I want to stop there because I know that we went really far. I'm really sorry.
No worries,
so I'm gonna leave it there.
Thank you, Silvana. That's this really exciting initiative. And there are already some questions in the chat. So thank you, Nicolás, for directing Victor towards more resources to learn about the methodology. I have two questions here, one from Juliana, who is really intrigued by which are the indicators you're using to measure use and impact, because we think this is challenging. So if you can share some reflection. And James is wondering if you see a link between the work that you're doing, the data that you are collecting, the data that is in the impact bond data set. Do you have any idea of anybody online has any suggestion? So feel free to add questions or suggestions in the chat, or to just raise your hand through the reaction button.
I'm not sure if in the meantime you want us to talk about the indicators on use and impact.
Yeah.
Nico, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, as we mentioned, we are piloting 4 indicators on use and impact. And they are like very direct to some kind of uses. For example, we have one in the land module that is tracking if land data is being used to influence policy in a more inclusive land tenure and land uses, for example. And we have another use indicator in the company information model, where we track if company information is being used for due diligence processes. And in political integrity, the use and impact indicator focuses if political integrity data sets are used in an accountability way. And the fourth one is in the public contracting, where it is assessed if it is used to identify red flags or potential in conflicts in procurement processes. And talking, that's the question that was made. Yeah, and talking about procurement, also some interesting insight that came when we are analyzing for today for these middle income and low income countries and data availability, is that we saw some correlation of the level of income of the countries and the data available. There is a gap there, but for example, in the models of political finance and public procurement, the gap was lower. So these kind of data sets that are most available in the middle and low income countries. This, as Silvana mentioned, is primary assessment, is not the final one, but there are some insights of this kind through the data sets.
Thank you, Nicolás.
I just wanted to say that that's really interesting. And yeah, I think we need to wait for the reports that I think is due December or maybe January, February. But yeah, I think we're looking forward to the report to see more detail on this.
Yes, sorry. No, basically on the launch of the report, we don't want to ruin the surprise, giving too much away. Also, we are reviewing some of the data, and we didn't do it before because December and January, we thought it was a really difficult time to launch with holidays, and also thinking that January in the global south in many cases is the summer, so we wanted to wait for a moment for everybody to read and to explore the data. So we are going to have a general launch in February.
I think Elle posted a question, maybe.
Elle, do you want to voice your question?
Thank you. It's really fantastic to hear more about this project. I'm just wondering whether you have any tips for the specific variables within your report that we should look at when we're interested at the performance of particular social programs and the data that's available on the effectiveness of public spending. Is there anything in there that we should particularly focus on for people who are interested in the use of outcomes-based approaches for good quality service delivery?
I think, I don't know if Silvana agree with me, but not in to talk about outcomes, not in a strictly direct ways, but yes, you will have a sense of, for example, availability of some data sets that are useful to understand the outcomes. We are not tracking that specifically for each thematic module, but for example, if you want to see, for example, a health module will help you then to build some outcome indicator, or we identify secondary data sources for population data that then may be useful to build that connection. But perhaps there is not a single specific question in each of the thematic indicators to connect with that.
But also it's something that we probably are going to be exploring in the next few months. I mean, how to connect the things that you are doing with the indicators that we already have, and how we can join or at least having some data that could provide some insights into the things that you are discussing. I mean, there are many things that we can explore in the future, and probably that's one of the things that we need to think about a little bit more carefully.
Thank you, Silvana and Nicolás. Do we have any last question? Because I don't want to take more time than I ask in your diary. I promise to keep these energizing and zingy session. And I would like to have a few minutes at the end for an exciting announcement. I don't have my judge hammer, so I'll move to my exciting announcement, which is that I am delighted to announce formally, you are the first group where I make this announcement live. We are launching a new partnership with CIF, which is the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. And CIF has been a very active player in the space of outcome-based approaches. And we have with us, I think it's still with us, Michael Camiro from CIF. And I wonder if, Michael, you can share a perspective of what CIF has been doing in this sector and what are the curiosity, what brought you to engage with us in this exciting partnership, which is a partnership that will last 2.5 years. And it will be centered around data and strengthening data capabilities. From the insight of the hack and learn, we can see pattern, and instead of being somebody's opinion, we could see something emerging from the data and from the experience of practitioners. But we would like to do that with data stewards who are based in low and middle income countries and co-create an agenda with them. So this is not the Go Lab in Oxford saying, oh, those are the questions that low and middle income countries should have, is working together to decide which are the big questions that we have and can we try to strengthen what is available and generate insights. The model is always, you have data, it's nice to have data, but data should generate insights that lead to decisions, and those decisions should lead to better outcomes. So we want to work on facilitating this journey. Michael, do you want to share a perspective with our audience?
Sure. Thank you, Mara. And thank you for inviting me to this peer learning session today. And I think I will echo our executive director's words on the level of excitement that we have as an organization on this new partnership with GoLab. So far, as you've seen in the previous slide, CIF has invested in other spaces around SRH as well as education and outcome-based investments, and P4P and DIBS have been part and parcel of what we want to do, as this is becoming the new norm in the development space. So this partnership, we really embrace it, and we hope that moving forward, it is going to help us understand better, consolidate data better, and also create insights that we can use whenever we want to create new investments that are deep-based and that have a bearing towards creating sustainable impacts. So thank you once again, Mara, for the impressive work that we've done together to bring this investment to life. And we hope that the next 2.5 years will be full of learnings and full of insights that we can use moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. As I said, we are very, very excited, and we will see, I think, much more activity in our peer learning groups and our Hack and Learn with a clear purpose. I don't want to keep too much of your time, so I just want to remind you that the Slido survey is still open. So if you have suggestion on improvement, play with our data set. And even if you don't find the Slido, email Juliana your suggestion, frustration, everything is welcome. We want to make our resource easy to use and helpful. And I would like to give you again a link to our report, the Hack and Learn, because you will find the richness of the various work that we have done. And again, have a think. Do you have a challenge that you think we should embark on, or a particular pivot you think would be helpful, or you would like to be involved in from one challenge that we have now? We can split challenges in sub-challenges if there is a lot of appetite. So I look forward to seeing you to our future session. Juliana, do we have any dates or windows that people can look forward to?
We don't have a fixed date yet, but I am pretty sure that the next peer learning session will be in February, because we may have another Hack and Learn more or less in March or April. So the peer learning session should be in February to warm up for the new event.
Thank you. So I just want to thank you all for participation to the call today and for participating in the Hack and Learn past and futures.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.